Hello, Internet. Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man, here once again. This time we're bringing you a not quite meta deck tech. And by not quite meta, I mean not meta at all. We're going to have some fun. I'm not going to be doing, Wind Waters right now on the heels of Opus 9, right before Riku's getting banned, stuff like that. So today I want to show you this deck I've been having a lot of fun with. It's gone through a lot of iterations. We'll continue to go through them as well. It's based on the initial inspiration was Ian Velez's Peanut Gallery deck that some of you might remember from the reunion last year. And it's kind of moved that forward in a way conducive to my play style. And just some spicy little things thrown in. Now, as far as competitiveness, this deck I would put probably at like a tier 2. It does lose more often than a meta deck against other meta decks, but I will say it does hold its own surprisingly well. So we're going to focus on looking at what I call peanut butter and jelly, as in a little homage to where I got the initial inspiration to start playing with this. And special shout out to Pittsburgh players that I play with a lot. Tim Bridge, a friend of mine who likes to play discard decks. And playing against that has always been challenging, particularly because I'm a mono lightning guy through and through, which really doesn't fare well in the discard matchup. So this deck was kind of the beginnings of how can I play around discard. Well, what if I was keeping my break zone active at all times? So kudos to Tim for helping me move this along to facilitate that matchup. And also to fellow Pittsburgh player Creon Smolnik, who has helped me iterate this about 90 times. We're both fans of the core mechanic, which we'll get to in just a second. Has helped me iterate it a bajillion times and probably will going forward as well. We're both big fans of the core mechanic. So, with that being said, I do have the tabletop display right on your screen. So we're going to go through the backups first because the core mechanic, if you know anything about the Peanut Gallery deck, is of course our 5-drop hero Lulu. So for dulling, we can get rid of a backup of ours and deal 5k damage to a forward. And we also have the Thundaga special. For 1 lightning, dull, and obviously a discard of a card named Lulu, we can choose a forward and deal it 10k. This is going to be something that we will do really often. We're going to be abusing Hero Lulu and some other cards in this deck to really pave the way for some small forwards getting through that really don't have any right to get through all that often. Sure, we're going to have a Lua in here and stuff like that for those early game pings, but when we've got 6s that aren't getting a lightning buff from the other Lulu card, our forwards should be pretty easy to take out at 6k. But if we're constantly abusing Lulu here to clear the board, we can get in those free points of damage. And this is where I want to start with. The deck has a ton of flexibility. So what you're going to see in my particular list was probably not in my list a month ago, and probably won't be the exact same a month from now. You have great flexibility to mess with the backup line as much as you want, mess with the forward line, maybe go a little more into monsters than I have here. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it, and I'm going to mention a couple things that I've messed with, but I don't have actually in the deck yet. So we're going to use Lulu's ability for a number of things, not only taking out forwards, but also giving us advantage. So we definitely want to start looking at backups in the Earth and Lightning categories that give us benefits when they enter our break zone, since we're going to be sending a lot to the break zone. Your backups will cycle in and out the entire game with this deck. So with Lulu, we're going to throw in 2 Argy. Now, Argy's first effect really doesn't get us much. When Argy enters the break zone, we get to choose one of 3 things. We can choose a character of cost 1 or less in our break zone. I can't remember if it's to the field or to the hand. Backup of cost 1 or less in the break zone and play it to the field. See, I couldn't even remember it because you'll never use it. There is no 1-drop backup here. However, the other 2 effects, activate a forward or give a forward you control haste, those are going to be used a lot. So we dull Lulu, break Argy, maybe crack something with 5k, maybe it kills it, maybe we've got plans to do a follow-up and kill it. Maybe we just need to give something haste. So another thing to consider, that 5k damage, maybe it's a kill shot, maybe it's not a kill shot. Maybe we're just doing it because we want to play another backup and we're at 5. Don't be afraid to just break them. In this case, Argy can give somebody haste or give activate a forward. Nice little combat trick. We've also, in the 2-drop category, got Black Mage. When Black Mage enters the field, we're going to reduce a forward's power by 4k. Obviously, not a break zone effect here, but great combo. Set your 2-drop Black Mage down, choose a forward, it loses 4k power, immediately dull Lulu, break the Black Mage, and choose that same forward to lose 5k or take 5k damage. You've now essentially wiped a 9k off the board. You put a 2-drop backup down, you dulled 1 backup, you got rid of the 2-drop backup. Not ideal in all circumstances, but you can start to see where those synergies lie. Along those same lines, we've got, sticking with lightning, 2 3-drop Fusoya, who when enters the field, we get to do 5k damage to a target, and when Fusoya goes to the break zone, we could choose a forward from our break zone and put it back in our hand. This is an incredible card in this deck, and not, right now I have him as 2 of, but don't be ashamed if you want to go 3 of. He's been 3 of in this deck before. I've just traded him out for a couple different things to play around with, so don't be afraid. And again, this is one where you can play it, deal 5, dull Lulu, break Fusoya immediately, deal 5, take out a 10k, go get a forward from your break zone. Lots of combinations here. And I know I keep saying break zone a lot, and some of you are already going, Mist Dragon, and we'll get to that. Just hold on for a second. Finishing off the lightning backups, we have 3. And these are all 1-ofs. We've got 4-drop Seymour to break a forward of cost 3 or less upon entry, planning that we will then remove Seymour from the board at some point later, using Lulu's ability to bring some other backup onto the board. We also have, where'd he go? Oh my gosh, where'd it go? Is that it? Oh, there it is. 4-drop Lid. When Lid enters the field, choose a lightning character in your break zone, add it to your hand. Great way to recur Lulus for Lulu special. Maybe go grab one of the lightning forwards that we'll talk about in just a minute so we can play it to go grab another forward. We're just going to keep digging in our break zone. The last lightning forward or backup I'm running right now is a 3-drop Sid of Clan Gully. When he enters the field, search an FFTA2 forward from your deck and add it to your hand. This has not always been in there, and in fact probably won't be in there all the time, depending on when you catch me. And this is a debate that Creon and I have pretty often, actually. Without this card, there is 0 search in this deck. None at all. Once you start a game, you aren't going to touch your deck besides to draw. The downside of that comes with, if your initial 5-card hand is really, really bad, you're at the mercy of your mulligan, and you know what your 5 bottom cards are. Now, Creon and I have had the debate many times on there is a benefit to knowing what 5 cards are on the bottom of your deck and knowing that they will be there when you get there, if you have late games, which this deck does tend to have some late games. I personally lean more towards the side of caution and would rather have at least 1 search. Maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. I understand it's only a 1-of, but having that search just makes me feel a little bit safer in taking that mulligan because nothing's worse than, opening up 2 or 3 important cards for the deck and then putting them on the bottom and knowing they're going to stay there the entire time. Again, that's a personal flavor piece, and I go back and forth on it. But for right now, we've got 1 search in there, and I'm sure you already know the target since we're talking about lightning. Moving on to the earth side of forwards, we do need some cheap earth backups to put out. So we're going to start with Lael, 2-of, so that we can dull to cancel a summon of cost 4 or less. You can already see that's going to take out things like Mist Dragon and other key summons. Doesn't get around Diabolos, but Diabolos isn't a great summon against this deck. There isn't much going on. I mean, maybe you'll get Veritas. We'll get to Veritas in a little bit here. But there's not too many juicy Diabolos targets here. So Lael serves a pretty good function in giving us a little protection against Mist Dragon and some other summons as well. It's not the only protection we have, and we'll get into that in just a second here, but it is a nice little piece of protection. I try to stay away in this deck from backups that you want to keep up, because we really, not only do we want to be using our backups to pay for things, but chances are we're going to break a shit ton of them, and so Lael may get broken by Lulu for a better play, but Lael just gives us a little bit of breathing room if we can afford to leave a backup standing to go ahead and cancel a summon. Since we're dealing with the break zone and getting a lot of things put into the break zone, with just a few things getting them back right now, we want to give ourselves a little more opportunity to get some things back. So we'll be running 3 4-drop miners so we can go in on play and get a backup. Usually Lulu, but sometimes in a nice opening hand, you can, play or discard a lightning forward and Lael to play miner. Go ahead and grab Lael, ditch another card, put Lael on the board, and at 2 earth backups, you're pretty much set earth-wise right off the bat. We're going to use a miner to obviously get forwards back later in the game. Rounding out the earth backups, we've got 1 Masked Woman, kind of serving the same function as Seymour does on the lightning side. Yes, it does have the requirement that the forward be dull, but it does have the benefit of hitting a 4-cost or cheaper forward, where Seymour is limited to 3. Just a one of. Again, these little slots, you can trade them as you see fit, cater them to your play style a little more if you want. 1 5-drop Agito Maragito, typically used when he enters the field to go rescue 2 summons. Maybe we ditched them early in our break zone, we'd like to get them back. Or you can use the cast one from your hand for free. I don't find myself using it all that often in this deck. It's usually more to, hey, I had a bunch of summons in my hand at the beginning. I needed to get my backups out. Let me play Agito in the mid game and go ahead and get 2 summons back. And if you had to guess, you probably knew the last 2 earth backups, 7-drop Shantoto. Again, a preference thing here. You might decide to run 1 of these. I prefer 2, just because I've found a lot of people expect 1 to be there. And so when you use Lulu to break Shantoto to finish off a forward, go to your attack phase, and then in main 2, drop Shantoto again, that really comes as a surprise to a lot of people in this particular deck. Maybe in Mono Earth you would expect possibly 2 Shantotos there, but a lot of times you don't expect it from dual-colored decks like this with Earth and Lightning. Now, you've probably noticed that's quite a few backups. In fact, I think last count was 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 backups. Almost half of our deck in backups. You're going to cycle through them quickly using Lulu. And then you're going to pick them back up. Maybe you're going to keep grabbing Fusoya, off of a minor play and then play him, hit something for 3, dull Lulu, crack Fusoya, hit that same thing for another 5, does a total of 10k, Fusoya goes to the break zone, get a forward. You're going to be interacting with your break zone a lot. Feel free to play with the backup package. This is just the one that I'm running at this current time. Before we go on to forwards, I do want to hit summons, because they're pretty easy in this deck. Obviously, Minwoo shuts this damn thing down. Now, I will say the deck can win without Lulu. And in fact, it does quite well without Lulu. So Lulu is not 100% essential. That is not your sole and only win con. It's a big one. If you can get Lulu online and rolling, you're going to win a lot of games with it. But it's not the only win con in the deck. But to help us, Minwoo is a bit of a pain in the ass. There are some other backups that can be a pain in the ass, so no surprise for you Earth players, we're running 2 3-drop Hecatons to go ahead and crack a backup of cost 3 or more. usually the ones that are going to give us any problems. Minwoo, 5-drop Yuna, throwing things out of the game. We want them in our break zone, whether it's via discard or because they left the field and when they broke, whatever. We want them to stay there, so 5-drop Yuna can eat a Hecaton too. Lightning side, we've got 2 4-drop Ramus. This is, again, a personal preference for me. I like it as a combat trick. I like it as an X-Burst. And, hey, I mean, nothing more really needs to be said. You're either going to lose 7k power on a cast, or you're going to lose 8k power on an X-Burst, which 9 times out of 10 almost serves the purpose of as a 7-drop Odin without having a 7-drop Odin in your damn deck. Last summons, we've got 3 Mist Dragons from Opus 9. Predominantly, we're going to use these to cancel Mist Dragon. Obviously, we've got Lael, but I said we don't always have the ability to leave Lael up turn after turn after turn to grant that protection. So those turns when we're going to need to take Lael down, if we have a Mist Dragon in our hands, then it doesn't feel as bad to let Lael down, and in fact, could even bait out the Mist Dragon. What I would say is, you're probably thinking, what if they're using White Mage? I have not worried about White Mage very much. If they're running 2 or 3 and they have them all out at once, yeah, I mean, that could be a little bit messy. But there are so many opportunities to bait a break of a White Mage where you don't really care if you get the value or not. You might go into playing a Miner knowing, I'm probably not going to see this backup. If I play Miner right now, they're probably going to use their White Mage and exile my target. But you have a play in mind after that might hit your break zone. So playing something like a Miner to bait the White Mage break on Shantoto, let's say, frees up the follow-up to play Diana, grab Alba from the break zone, play Alba, Doll 2, swing for win. Stuff like that where you can really bait the White Mage. Mist Dragon, a little harder to bait, but you can still do it big time if you're dulling Lael and then having a Mist Dragon in your hand. There are decks that we will use some of the other functions, and even in this deck, I think I've dulled a forward of mine, and it can't take damage this turn. I don't think with this particular deck I've used Mist Dragon to exile somebody else's break zone all that often, but of course the opportunity is there. But that's the summons package, and you have, again, a great deal of flexibility. Have fun with the deck, play with it, throw in the summons that work best for you. But that's my summons package as of right now. Now, we're only running 7 summons because we're going to play a monster game a little bit with 2 monster cards. One, you might have guessed, and that's Luminous Puma. When Luminous Puma is played, we can go ahead to our break zone and grab a forward, put it in our hand. We can break Luminous Puma at any time to go grab a character from our break zone and put it into our hand. Nice way, again, to recycle those Lulus for the special, the Shantotos, to wipe the board a second time, to go and get those forwards that are going to go and grab other forwards from the break zone. Big key card, and I've played with having 2 in the deck for a little while. I kind of enjoy the 1 because we're obviously, you probably already know, we're running Galdez in here to go ahead and get this card back and do a loop. So, again, if you want to run 2, go for it. A little bit of a current meta tech play. I have 1 Hill Gigas in here only for really the Riku Mill. So in 2 weeks when that card is officially on the ban list, I don't know if Hill Gigas stays in here or not. It has proven useful in other matchups as well, but really it's there for the current meta matchup against the Riku Mill. So one that might stay, might go. Moving over to forwards now. We've got a couple mainstays that you probably have already guessed if we're running Lightning are already here. So we'll go quickly with 2 Alcids, 2 Onion Knights, 2 Rigdia. And I don't know if really anything needs to be said about our boys in purple here. They do their job. Alcid comes in, throws down a lightning forward of cost 3 or less, deals 6k to an active forward. Onion Knight hits for 5k to a damaged target. Rigdia hits an active target for 3, and if that target dies in the same turn, you get to dull another forward. all three of these cards, very nice in their own right. But again, think of what we're doing here. We're cracking things for 5k with Lulu repeatedly. So now all of a sudden, Onion Knight doesn't have to rely on Alcid being played, or Rigdia being played before it, or going to combat and using Onion Knight to follow up in main too. It just really opens up the plays for all three of these cards. And one of Creon loves this play, and I do too, to be fair. Sometimes you'll get unlucky in a matchup and have somebody turtling behind a really big forward, and you don't happen to have the Lulu to pop Thundaga special and crack it off the board. There is something to be said for putting Rigdia out, choosing himself for 3k damage, and then dulling Lulu and breaking putting a backup in the break zone and hitting your own Rigdia for 5k, thus allowing you to dull said big forward and swing for the win. Yeah, these aren't the type of plays that are going to happen all that often, but man, when they go off, feels really, really good. So just I want you thinking about all three of these cards not necessarily being tied to each other now, but having a lot of room to play around with all the damage that Lulu is doing as well. Sticking with lightning forwards, let me get these guys off the board. Sticking with the lightning forwards, we're going to go with 2 Diana and 3 Alba when it comes to our Warriors of Darkness. So this is one of those awesome little combinations that is great as a secondary or even a third version of the win con for the deck, where you throw down Diana, you go ahead and you grab Alba, you throw Alba out, and you go ahead and maybe break Argy to get Diana some haste. My dogs are going nuts upstairs. I apologize. Lightning forwards, we've got 3 Alua. I'm pretty sure everybody saw that coming. It just makes sense in this deck. And again, is that surprise kill shot or that early damage at the beginning of a game. This is also the only real activation that you have in the deck. So I'm going to talk, once we finish the summons up, against some about some matchups that the deck is really, really good against, and then some of its weaknesses too, just to give you some ideas. And I'm sure that you can already understand that with Alua being the only activation here, and that being Alua's special that activates the forwards, while we might do okay against a discard ice because we can grab things from our break zone with great consistency, we don't fare too well in most cases to an ice deck that is specifically catered towards dull freeze because we only have the one activation trigger. You also have as a secondary activation off of Argy, but it can only be 1 forward. So technically, I guess we have 2 activation triggers, but Alua's is the only full board activation in the deck. Now, we've seen the lightning forwards. Where are the earth forwards? Well, we don't have many because we don't really need many, but Wool, I think, does provide a little oomph in this deck for taking a lot of our 6s and making them 8 and Brave on attack phase with their the 2k and Brave buff. And then we've also got 2 5-drop Cecils. I love these as X-Bursts because sometimes we are going to take a little bit of early damage. If we don't happen to get that Alua early, we're probably going to take a damage or 2 because we do need a bit of time to set up our backups. We're trying to get 5-drop Lulu out there. So it's not very often that Cecil isn't going to hit when you play because you're already usually going to be at 3 damage. On the dark side of things, I've already mentioned both Veritas and Galdez, and they finish out our forward lineup. Veritas, instant removal, again, and then Galdez not only being 8k, but also having the ability to recycle monsters upon death, so we can truck Galdez into something and go get our Luminous Puma back, play our Luminous Puma, which lets us grab a forward, so we grab Galdez. And then we break Luminous Puma to take whatever character we want. So that one's a freebie. Put Galdez out, get him trucked, go get Luminous Puma, play Luminous Puma, get Galdez on that trigger, break Puma, get whoever the hell we want, and the cycle goes. Now you can also, in the current meta, if you're trying to get that Hilgigas out, you could grab that off of Galdez's trigger too. Not often that I use the random discard. I have used the 5k power. Obviously, if you hit something for 8k with Galdez blocking, Galdez breaks, choose that same forward to lose 5k, you're probably in a pretty good spot as far as that combat round goes. So that can be useful, and then later, maybe you haven't seen Luminous Puma yet, you play it later and get Galdez back. Veritas, just another way to clear the board. We've got a lot of instant breaks. We've got a lot of damage. It's spread out nicely. You know, Y'shtola doesn't take damage, right? Okay, well, we've got a 4-drop Ramu to deal with that. We've got cards that break instead of dealing damage. All right, well, this can't be broken by things that don't deal damage. Well, obviously with Lulu and Alcid and Onion Knight, we do have the capability to do damage. We've got the capability to cancel summons. So there is quite a bit of just flexibility across the board. Again, it's not tier 1 meta or anything like that, but it can win an awful lot of games a lot of different ways. So I would encourage you to check it out, try it out, make some changes. As far as favorable matchups, you have really good matchups against Ice Earth. You have some good matchups against, obviously, Mono Lightning you do pretty well against because you can kind of keep pace with its early game. Not as well, but it is a favorable matchup. Honestly, there aren't too many unfavorable matchups, and I found that a lot of these games can go to mill. To whoever decks out, because this deck has, even if you can't get onto the front foot and start swinging, it's got remarkable staying power as far as not letting you get on the front foot and continuing to do damage. So if you can put in a point or two of early damage, stalemate the mid game, this deck really has some staying power in the late game and can really cause deck outs against decks that really have no reason to be decking out. You do have to stay ahead on damage for most of those to pay off in your favor, so that is something to be cognizant of. The only matchup I really would say, this kind of sucks, you can still win it, by all means, you can still win it, is the Dull Freeze specific Ice deck. If it's got a little Dull Freeze here and there, you're probably fine. If it's something like the Cat 8 decks right now, that are really going after dulling and freezing every damn turn, that type of matchup could be a bit of a pain in the ass. And then Wind Water with the mill right now is a pain in the ass too. That's why Hilgigas is teched in there. But there's a whole lot of fun to be had. I know it's not quite meta, but hey, that's what I do here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe down below. Give me some comments on what you think should be in this deck, how you would change it up a little bit. And until next time, this is Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man, saying stay out of that break zone.